Nini, everyone. Sorry it's been so long. Um, I've been pretty busy with work and, my life with my family and friends and everything like that. And I've been sick a few times. Not fun. But anyway, it's almost Thanksgiving. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, and I have some time on my hands. So, I thought I would share a video that's been a bit of a long time coming. I've been planning it for a while, and I just finally got the time to, just go out and record it. So it's a little bit of a winging, little bit of just, me writing or reading off a script, almost. But, um, gosh, how do I segue into this? It's about, well, back when I was a little greener Kemetic, I guess you could say, I was kind of trying to look for a community because I belong to a pagan group, but it's an eclectic one and mostly filled with Wiccans and Druids. So, I was the token Kemetic in that group. I'm still the token Kemetic in that group. And, it just feels kind of lonely dealing with just, they're pagans, but they worship in Celtic or other deities. And so I tried to look on the internet to find an Egyptian community I could belong to. And the first one I found was a group called Kemetic Orthodoxy. And this isn't, this video is not to deride Kemetic Orthodoxy or just say, they're generally bad or anything like that. But this is just more of a video to talk about my philosophical objections to Kemetic Orthodoxy and some of my concerns about it, I guess you could say. It's not to, insult them or deride them or anything like that. It's, just regular common criticism and, the differences in opinion when it comes to philosophy. Um, so if there are any people who belong to Kemetic Orthodoxy or House of Nature or however you like to call it, who are watching this, it's not to directly attack the group, but it's just to talk about my philosophical objections and my own concerns personally with it and why I never joined. So, be that the disclaimer. So, yeah, all that. But when I first found the website, I was like, oh my God, a place for me. Um, a place where, people I can talk to about Kemeticism and stuff. And so I started going through the website and it was like, eh. I was like, ah, eh, eh. Mm. Yeah, I know. The more I got into it, the more misgivings and stuff that I had about it. And just, this is just sort of the video where I talk about that sort of thing. But in terms of that, I wanted to get started with, they have an about page on their website, kemet.org. So let's jump into that, and then I will talk to you about, my own personal opinions on that page. So I am switching windows. Okay, so I shall read this for you guys. What is Kemetic Orthodoxy? Kemetic Orthodoxy is a modern practice of the religious tradition of ancient Egypt known to its own people as Kemet. This particular practice was founded by Reverend Tamaro El Ciuda, I hope I get that right, in the late 1980s, and is called Kemetic Orthodoxy or the Kemetic Orthodox religion after the term Kemetic or of Kemet, and Orthodox meaning a sect conforming to established doctrine, especially in religion. Through the foundation of ancient thought and spiritual structure, Kemetic Orthodox devotees are able to follow a path their forebears first walked more than 4,000 years ago. Kemetic Orthodoxy is an African traditional religion and bears similarity to other African traditional African diasporic religions, such as the West African religions of the Yoruba, Akan, Congo, Dahomey. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, peoples, and Afro-Caribbean practices of voodoo, candomblé, and lukumi. as well as spiritual practices known from northeastern Africa and the ancient Near East. Practicing Kemetic Orthodoxy requires a commitment of preserving a cultural heritage established in the past, which Kemetic Orthodoxy continues to respect and represent, even in places and times well removed from its original practice. The Kemetic Orthodox religion is a polytheism, meaning that it recognizes many gods and goddesses. In addition, it is a special type of polytheism, often called henotheism or monolatry. Monolatry is a different concept than monotheism, where it is believed God manifests in one form and one form only. Monolatry is a soft polytheism having a multi-god structure where gods can and do manifest as distinct individuals, and yet providing the possibility that these gods can be understood in relationship to each other via syncretism, several gods joining to form a new composite deity, and aspecting, gods appearing as other gods. Henotheism is a religion that admits the existence of many gods, yet tends to worship them only one at a time, or favoring one god over others in its personal manifestations. In Kemetic Orthodoxy, we give special importance to our parent god or goddess, or pair of two deities, as revealed through our rite of parent divination. However, we never believe that those are the only deities that exist, nor does that prevent us from ever honoring any other deities. A monolatrous religion professes one divine force, nature in the Kemetic language, meaning divine power, that is comprised of separate interlinked deities, like a team that can be defined as both one entity, the sum of its parts, and by individual members themselves. The gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt, while clearly differentiated from each other in some respects and not as clearly in others, also represent an aspect of nature as its names, after the practice of recognizing nature in its name or in ritual invocations. The names of nature are the many, the individual deities of the pantheon, and they are also representative aspects of the concept of godhood itself, called an abstract nature, divine power or slash God, or the self-created one. So that's pretty much what a little bit of the gist of what Kemetic Orthodoxy is. And after reading that part, I was like, but there were some other parts, as I delved further into the website, that just made me like, oh, I don't want any part of this at all. So I'll kind of start going into the parts of it. Right, so yeah, Kemetic group founded in the late 1980s by Tamara Suda. That's all right with me, People can start, their own sects of a religion by themselves. But one of the big parts, I didn't realize, or some of us are talking about it not too long ago on a particular chat on Facebook with some fellow Kemetics of mine, and they were like, "Oh yeah, they come to me an African traditional religion." I'm like, "What? What? 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 What?" Because I understand that, in terms of an African traditional religion, some people define it kind of differently. Like if it's a religion that originated in Africa, yeah, then it could be Kemeticism can be a African traditional religion. But I've delved a little bit into Voodoo and Yoruba and some of those other, like the diasporic religions like Santeria, Candomblé, or Lukumi. And there are quite a few differences of Kemeticism, or between Kemeticism and these Western African traditions. And if you define African traditional religion like, to be Yoruba or Ifa or any of those other ones, then I don't think that you can really count Kemeticism as an African traditional religion in that respect. And it's probably another topic for another video, because there's a very diverse lots of diverse types of beliefs between these sorts of religions from Western Africa. And there's a lot of differences between those and ancient Egypt and the ancient Egyptian religion. I think ancient Egyptian religion does have influences from Africa, more specifically the Sudan or Nubia. But other than that, I think Kemeticism is mostly a Middle Eastern religion, in my own opinion. I mean, it's a, Egypt is a right at the crossroads of Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. So I don't think it's an exclusively African religion, much more like Ifa or Yoruba or Voodoo is. So I think there are a lot of different influences that Kemeticism got that the other African traditional religions did not get. And like I said, I could probably do a different video on it. And, if you guys are interested in that sort of thing, I am more than willing to do the research and the footwork and the recording and all of that for you. So, moving on. Yeah, and also another thing, it claims to be a soft polytheism with monolatry, and believes that one deity, I'm kind of paraphrasing, manifests as many forms. And I, uh, I'm not really much of a soft polytheist. I'm a hard polytheist. Um, I believe that Noon or Ra, acts as the original source of all divinity and all of its existence, and then the creation of separate entities was more like a cell dividing to me. So I believe that all these entities, while they may have the same spark of creation or life or whatever you might call it, um, they're still separate. They're not, names, and they're not, um, like a sort of composite deity that can just form up and become one. Um, I understand that some people see it differently, but, this is just more my opinion. And, yeah, or right of parent deity. From what I understand, that's more, specific to Kemetic Orthodoxy. From my own experience, Sekhmet called me to Kemeticism specifically. So, I guess in that respect, Sekhmet is my parent or whatever you'd like to call it. And, I don't need an RPD or anything what they call it to tell me that you know Sekhmet's my mom or something, or something of the sort. um some people, they find their deities or their, the closest ones to them through their own introspection and through their own meditation and magical work and worship. And other people, like, me, they got called. It's like, hey, hello, you belong here. So, I don't think it's specifically any specific rite that will lock you in. And from what I understand, or never mind, but from what I understand, but some people, I guess they don't like their RPD or something, but like in the church or in their group, like if you get divined with that deity, then that's your deity. But I don't know, because I never took the RPD, so a lot of it is hearsay, and I don't want to put that in and poison the pool of everybody watching this. So I'll move on, because I don't know what I'm talking about, really. It's just stuff that I've heard. Um, one thing though, that really bothered me when I was browsing through their website was their founder, Suda, Tamara Suda. Um, gosh, it's really hard to describe. Like, she's their Nisut, which means king in ancient Kemetic language. So, essentially she's kind of like the pharaoh in their group. And I don't know if that means like she's like completely infallible or anything like that, but it really rubbed me the wrong way when I heard that, because, studying ancient Egyptian religion and ancient Egypt history, you understood the pharaoh as being a god and infallible and all powerful. And if they have that in their religion, it makes her, I guess, at least what I thought at first, all powerful, a god, all of that. And so it was like, no, yeah. But yeah, it's like a lot of people recognize her as having sort of the kingly caw, like the pharaoh would have the soul of Horus in him, or would represent Horus on earth, which she does as well, according to this group upon her coronation. And some people even see her as sort of like semi-divine, or other practitioners don't believe her as inherently so, but more as a guide. I have seen some version of like a hymn for her and her kind of thing. So it's like, I guess it's some people believe her to be divine, some people don't. But in my mind, it's like, if you have a person, like one person who's almost semi-divine in your group, yeah. Because one of my big hobbies, or one of my hobbies, I guess you could say, I like to research cults, which I guess is sort of a little weird, but it's just sort of something that I kind of delved into when I was younger. Um, and I'll leave some links and stuff in the description talking about cults and like how to recognize one and stuff like that. But it's like, you get this like one infallible leader, and you got this insular jargon, like Shemzu and Remet. I don't know all of it, but they've got that in Kemetic Orthodoxy. You have Suda as sort of the supreme leader of the group, and sort of an insular jargon on like who is outside the group, Remet, who's a follower, Shemsu, and I think they go even further in terms of like priests and priestesses and different things like that. So it kind of, raises some red flags for me, because like two of my favorite cults is Scientology and the Fundamentalist Mormon Church, or the FLDS. And both of those had supreme leaders. For Scientology, it's L. Ron Hubbard, obviously. And for the FLDS, it's Warren Jeffs. And he's in jail right now. He's still alive, but he's still leading the church from in jail. So, when that sort of thing, I see that sort of thing, it raises a lot of red flags for me, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But, there are some things that kind of tell me it's like, it's not so culty, with Kemetic Orthodoxy, because they don't have a policy of separation or disconnection from family members or anybody who might, dissent against the opinion of, like Suda or the rest of the group. Like Scientology has, they have the policy of disconnection, and they don't really have an emphasis on raising money or proselytization, like, not so much like the FLDS, because they're very insular, but Scientology, they're very much into proselytization and rising in ranks in their organization requires lots and lots of money. But as one person that I really like on the internet or YouTube, her name is Tori Magoo. She is an ex-Scientologist. She says, look at both sides and decide for yourself, because Scientology won't let you do that. And in this case, I will let you do that. Look at both sides. I'll provide links. And you guys decide for yourself, is Kemetic Orthodoxy for you? It wasn't for me. It's not that way for a lot of people, but it may be for you. So do the research, decide for yourself. And you might see me in a few other videos soon because it's Thanksgiving weekend. I will keep in touch. Thank you, and Synapti.